Soundiron podcast, we have Tobi Weiss. He is a film and game composer, and he's got a active Instagram following, and he is writing cues for Soundiron occasionally for our beta team. And we're excited to talk to you about how you get work and your studio. I see you've got some crazy colored lights and screens, and welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, dude.
Thank you too for inviting me.
Could you tell us about your early musical life? Like, are you from a musical family, and what was the role of music in your childhood?
Boy, it was a pretty huge role. So I was lucky enough that me and my little sister got a little keyboard when we were like, I don't know, 6 years old or something like that. And my mom also teach me the guitar a little bit.
Wow.
And so I began to play around with stuff pretty early. And I don't know, my sister and me, we did radio shows, and it was horrible for my parents probably, but still we were always making music. I was singing in a choir, and then when I got into, I don't know, when I was like 10 years old, when I advanced to the second school, the Gymnasium in Germany, there was like an orchestra class, and so I was able to learn playing the cello. And that was pretty cool. I sadly stopped playing the cello when I was a teenager because, I don't know, I decided that an electric guitar is cooler than a cello, and I really regret this decision. But yeah, that was pretty much my start. And I played a lot of video games, and that was a huge part of my childhood besides making music.
So what kind of games were you playing?
A lot of Super Nintendo and Game Boy Advance. So I got my Super Nintendo pretty late. The GameCube was already released, but for some reason I wanted to have this Super Nintendo as a kid because I liked the graphics, and I don't know why I decided to go for the Super Nintendo. And I played a lot of Zelda, played a lot of Metroid, was one game that I really remember with a lot of passion. And a lot of Nintendo games. And then later it changed a little bit, but that was what I grew up with, the Super Nintendo role-playing games and stuff.
So does that influence your composing now? Like that, all that complex musicality, just like scales everywhere?
I'm not sure. It's like, I wish I could say, yeah, when I was 7 years old, I already felt that I was born to be a composer, but I don't know. I remember that I had a lot of tracks that I really loved. And when I was, I don't know, 14 or 15 years old, I began to work a little bit with Magic's Samplitude. I don't know if you know this DAW. It's like, pretty beginner friendly because it's not that expensive and stuff. And I remember that I tried to play these things, but I wasn't thinking stuff like, he used this instrument in a very interesting way or something like that. But yeah, probably this influenced me. So like in a subconscious way.
I know like Super Smash Brothers music, Hyrule Temple. I mean, that kind of stuff definitely influenced like what I think is cool, just from what I listen to.
I think you can't avoid that, to be influenced by the things you loved as a child or as a teenager. So it's because there are some people who are like, nah, my music is super unique. I'm not influenced by anything, but that's a lie. So it's no, you are influenced by a lot of things. And
you're influenced all day by everything that's around you.
Absolutely.
That's like when people say advertisements don't work on me. You're like, okay, all right, cool. Got it.
Yeah.
So you're a teenager, you're playing electric guitar, and then what happens next?
I had a few bands, and I was like playing the guitar and singing a little bit, but I sucked on stage. So I had fun, but I'm not a person for the stage. So, and I also felt that because I had to, it was okay when I drank a lot of beer, but I couldn't drink beer for the rest of my life. So it was like, nah, I'm not the guy for the stage. And and I also did some of these, I don't know, I wrote tracks for my own and just did a few things. And I noticed that I enjoyed just like creating the instrumentals for me and for my bands. And so did more and more. And I don't know, in the beginning, I recorded stuff like I put a camera on my desk because I didn't have a microphone, recorded a video, then I exported the audio file. That was before Magic, actually. And then I imported this audio file into Audacity. I don't know. I think it's this free thing that still exists and still looks the same
It
for
sure
some
does.
reason. It didn't change. But yeah, and so let's sum this up a little bit. And then after school, I wasn't sure what to do. I was like, I think that is a lie, because I was like, I don't want to destroy my biggest hobby and stuff. But I think I just was, I don't know, a little bit afraid or something like that. Because when you sit there and be like, oh, writing music is fun. And I think at this time I was more like, oh, I want to produce bands or something like this. So I wasn't that much into this whole game music and instrumental field, but I had no idea what to do. So and that's still a case today, I guess, because there are these universities, like don't want to drop names, but I went to one of these later too. And for me, it was pretty much wasted money. I don't know. It's maybe for some people this works because you have frames and stuff. You have a schedule, and some people need this. But I think the biggest problem is that they promise you things like, yeah, if you pay 20K euros or dollars or whatever, then you'll get into the music industry, and that's a pretty big problem because you can't promise things like that. Now I have a useless bachelor degree, but still I was really diving into game music during these years. So from like my or when I was 20 to 23, 24, that was when I really noticed what you can do with music. It's like this Dunning-Kruger effect. I thought that I already knew a lot of things because, I was a singer-songwriter and I had bands, but I knew nothing. So then I explored stuff, and that was, I think, in my early 20s. I remember that a few of the first libraries I bought were Soundiron stuff. My first choir was Requiem Light.
Yeah. Let's see. So you finished with college, and like college was like a subpar experience for you, but how did you transition from kind of being a hobbyist in music to landing your first score for a game?
That's the most asked question on my Instagram. I don't know, my Instagram grew quite a lot, and I at least get 2 messages a day with people asking, hey, how do I get into the game industry?
Yeah.
Can you tell me the secret? And it's like the people expect a shortcut, because a lot of people see also accounts like mine. I try to cover topics like mental health, the problems, the sleepless nights, all these potential things that you can stolpern in German, like you fall. I don't know, that make you struggle.
Bring you down.
But still, if you only watch my videos, it looks like, yeah, I'm making music every day, and that's it, and I earn a lot of money, and you only need to buy, I don't know. And that's so wrong, because as already said a few minutes ago, there's never a guarantee or something like that you will make it into the industry. Never. You can be as talented as possible. Yeah. And the more you do, even with talent, the more you exercise. I rearranged hundreds of soundtracks to learn what the composers did for games and stuff, but that still isn't like the secret to get into the industry. And because the more you do and the more you learn, the more situations may pop up where you can be lucky. Or so you have to trigger as much situations as possible that could be lucky for you. I think that's the way to go. And I was super lucky. And to answer your question, which I forgot. So after school, I was like, I don't want to do this. And then I decided to go for this college thing. And I was like, okay, I'll just go all in until I turn 30 years old. I'll just do 10 years of trying as hard as possible to become a composer. Because in this year from 20 to 22, I figured out that that's what is actually the most fun part, to create instrumentals. Now, I wasn't like, I want to become a game composer. I think I wanted to become a composer for media. I don't know. I still do a lot of stuff, mainly for games, but I do music for bands, for books, which was amazing, for a few films, not that much, to be honest, for corporate stuff. And today I'm in the lucky position that I can choose what I can do, but I did everything. And that's what I did. So I was sitting there after college, and I did the obvious things. I reached out to dozens of forums. For some reason, especially game devs love forums. It's like some of us stuck in the early 2000s, so it's really weird, and they still are there today, and it's funny, and that's sort of the obvious things. And I did a lot of super low and no budget productions, but there was a time when I noticed, I know nothing about game music. I can maybe write mediocre melodies and stuff, and I can do a few chord progressions. And but that's it. And that's when I began, as I already said, to work on these super low budget productions, no budget most of the time, and to begin analyzing all these soundtracks of my favorite games, and to put focus on why did they do things, why did they use this specific instrument, and is this instrument connected to something, is it connected to a character, a color, I don't know. I just try to find out as much as possible. And that's also a grudge, I don't know if you can say it like this, because I can't play games anymore without frequently or running into my studio when there's an interesting a sound, a chord progression. I immediately have to recreate this. I tried to play Persona 5 a few weeks ago. No chance, the music is too good. So I have to go get into this music before I actually play the game. After I think 5 years, so when I was 25 or 26, maybe 6 years, that was when the first time it was called Gilded Shadows, a visual novel, not my kind of game, but this person, I began doing Instagram stuff already a little bit, and I posted stuff in the indie dev Facebook groups and things like that. And I was just like, okay, I have to produce as much as possible. Before I get to Gilded Shadows, that's a more important point, this production thing. Because what I did, everybody knows this problem. If you try to approach somebody with like, hey, I want to work with you, they are like, okay, what did you do before? Where's your show reel? But you don't have a show reel because, it's not like a unique thing for the music industry. It's like everywhere. You need something to get somewhere. It's weird. And so that's not like a tip that I have to do, but I just made things up because I hadn't projects where I could work on. And so I was like, I'm writing something for this or that game project right now. And then I explained what I was doing. And so I was able to showcase stuff like leitmotif connection and things, because I was able to talk about these things and to underline these unique selling point that people have above these music libraries. But and that's what I did a lot. I just began to talk about this. And obviously during the years, I tried, for example, I wrote mails to every single developer that's on Steam. It's a gaming platform. So I went on every single website because there isn't like a database. I Googled their name, went to their website, put their email address into a document. Then I wrote like 4,000 emails. Obviously, I didn't get a single job, but it at least felt like I was doing so. But I learned that I have to do stuff like unique pitches. So when I approach a new project today, I am like, hey, I saw this artwork. Here's a little tune I wrote, what I had in mind that represents this situation in my mind. So I just like try to showcase or to present what I can do for their product and to show that I care about that. And but that's what I did a lot, just like trying. And then now we can turn to this Gilded Shadows part. Then this team reached out to me and for whatever reason, I think I wrote them on Instagram, hey, I can do music for you, like the other 500 game composers that write game devs every day. But maybe I wrote the right words or something like that, or she liked my music. And she came back 8 months later, and she had collected money via Kickstarter, I guess. And she collected, I think, I don't know, 5,000 Canadian dollars. I'm not sure anymore. I thought Canadian dollars is the same as USD. It's not.
No.
It's I didn't know that during that time. But anyway, somebody collected money to a lot of money. I never earned like a 4-digit sum before that for music that I write. And that was so valuable for me because it's not like that I do this to become super rich. But you need to earn money to, I don't know, sleep in a calm way and to do this thing. And during that time, I worked at festivals. During the day, I was a backliner, was doing mixing stuff and so on. But still, I almost always was in the reds. So it was amazing for me, because I think a huge problem that a lot of composers have is also something like an imposter syndrome. So when I was talking to my, I don't know, friends and stuff, and was saying, yeah, I'm a game composer, I was in my head, I was thinking like, nah, not really. And but yeah, it were a few things that I were doing.
Yeah, so getting paid was like a validation that you were on the right track, and that it kind of like validated what you were doing and made you feel good. I know that people say making your first dollar on the internet will change your life. And so you kind of had like a similar experience with my original music has made me money and I can pay some bills using my skills.
Yeah, absolutely. And you was so kind. That's something that's still the most important thing for me today, because it was an awesome atmosphere when we were communicating. And it's the best feeling in the world for me if I notice, okay, this person is super passionate about making this project the best possible project. And it's not like, I don't know, there's so many people, so many projects where I knew from the first minute, this game will never be released. Like, we are two people and we are still students, but we are going to make the new World of Warcraft, but even bigger. And then we will become super rich. And quite a lot of situations where you just notice it's perfect. Everybody wants to create the best possible thing, and everybody respects the other person's skills. And that was maybe even more valuable than the first bigger amount of money that I earned. But it probably was a combination of both things.
So how long did it take you to write that music?
Gilded Shadows, that was a few months later. Another game project joined this thing, so it became a bit slower, because I didn't know yet how to schedule things right, how much I can do in a specific time and stuff. And it were only I think 20 minutes of music or something. So it wasn't one of these bigger projects that I do today. 2 months or 3 months. It was my first multiple weeks project.
What about now? Are you doing anything as far as like trying to knock out a certain amount of minutes of music a day, or depending on how many projects you have going on? Or
so a few months ago, there was the first situation where I noticed, oh fuck, I accepted too many projects, because I was pretty much always able, because there weren't enough requests, to always be like, yeah, I'll do that, because even the worst project was valuable for me, because if I have to write for a desk, then I do that. Then I do the best possible track for this desk, because why not? I learn to get into things and understand how they sound. I don't know. And so there I learned it the hard way, that I can't do work infinitely, especially since I'm 30 years old now. You get older and you can't be awake for 72 hours straight anymore.
We don't get younger.
No, absolutely not. And it's really hard. It destroyed my neck. I'm still suffering from that today. So I'm trying to do like exercises and stuff. And I was like, what the fuck? That's not the way it works, because I love working, but I don't love working if I have constant pain. But a minute of music it always depends. I divide between the first minutes of music for, let's say, a game OST. So the first few minutes, are in most of the cases how I approach it, a 4 to 5 minutes mood track. Because before I write a concept, like 3 or 4 pages where I wrote down all my thoughts on the game, I try to get as much information as possible, because in most of the cases you don't get like a playable game and write music for it. And so very often there are only words and ideas, and I try to get as much information as possible. What colors will you use? So what's the word and stuff? How is the main mood in this world, and everything? And then I sit down and write down my ideas, like what instruments do we want to use and why, and stuff like that. What are they connected to? Do we have leitmotifs, and why do we have them? And I think that there always should be a good reason to use a specific instrument or a specific phrase or a melody, because that way you can really make use of all these things that you can do with music subconsciously to people, because that's awesome. Everybody understands all these effects that music can do, work with everybody, even if they don't know why. And because it's like a universal language or something like that. And so the first track is this mood track, and this can take, I don't know, in most of the cases, it's probably 8 to 10 hours to sometimes more, sometimes 20 hours, because it's the most important track, because that kind of determines the later sound and mood and instrumentation of the game. So it's not like I only use these instruments, but it's like a rough basement, and now and then it can evolve, and that takes quite a lot of time. And after that, so the later minutes of music, it becomes faster and faster, because after a few revisions, a few tracks made, a few lays created and stuff, it's maybe it can be up to only 2 hours for a minute of music, sometimes only one. It always depends. But I think I always calculate with 2 to at least 6 hours per minute of music, just to be safe.
So you're saying you basically lay the foundation, and that takes the longest time. So like that first 5 minutes of music is the most important, because it's like the foundational layers of the whole score, and then it gets faster after that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what's a typical day in the life? Are you like a night person or a morning person? And like, how do you start your projects?
I don't do this night thing anymore. I work during the nights quite a lot of time, because I think I thought a little bit that you have to do it like this, because that's something you see in movies and stuff. And I kind of enjoyed it. But yeah, today I enjoy getting up early, and I don't know, I feel most creative in the early hours of the day. So today I already did everything. I stopped working like 2 hours ago, and then in the very first hour, I just like check my mails and stuff. That's something I have to do. In most of the cases, I do that in my bed already, like with my smartphone, but I try to stop that, because that's not healthy. And then I just, that's a good idea, actually.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people saying like when they're done for the day, and then they go in their room to just like chill or veg out, or just like get your, watch some YouTube, or just like get your mind off of whatever you're doing, is they'll actually like take their phone and put it in another room.
Yeah, it's I really should do that. I'm listening to a lot of podcasts, because I'm not good with silence, and I use my smartphone for that. And maybe I should just get like a super cheap second device to allow me to put my smartphone off, because it's really hard sometimes. I noticed that after work, in my work days, to get back to this, I like in most of the cases, sometimes 6, sometimes 8, but in most of the cases, I sit here way more hours, like 9 to 10 probably. And then I stop working, but I don't stop working. So I can't shut off my head, because I'm still in this weird creative mode when I compose too long. That's why I try to do this in the early hours. So my active music production time is like 4 to 5 hours, I guess. Sometimes more if there are tough deadlines, but that's the best time period for me. That's what I figured out. Otherwise, I can't sleep during night, because there's too much going on in my head. It's really something I have to take care of, to try to really force me to somehow get out of this work mood or stance. I don't know. And on the other hand, I'm not like the kind of person who is like, oh, I need to improve my work-life balance, because if you don't like merge your work and life, then this is not a job for you, at least, I don't know, in some kind of way. So it's not like 100% type of thing. I have to force me to have like calm times and stuff, but on one or another way, you have to merge this thing. You have to have fun to do this. So that's the most important thing, to have passion for this stuff, because otherwise you'll just, I don't know, suffer after a few years, and you won't make it through the first 7 or 8, in my case, years where you don't have a single dollar. And yeah, I do music the first 4 or 5 hours, to get back to your question. And then I take a short break. I don't know, I do nothing, probably mails, Instagram scheduling and stuff, hashtag analysis. I can't see hashtags anymore. I have like 50 pages of custom sets and analyzing stuff, and but I'm getting through this finally, and that takes a lot of time. I do these videos, I post once per day. That's pretty tough, but it's one of my main income for jobs at the moment. That really changed. It was different a few years ago, but it's really valuable for me. And yeah, then sometimes I do a block of making music again, like another 3 or 4 or 5 hours, but I try to avoid that right now, or at the moment I try to change a few things.
So talk to me about the Instagram. You said that over the last 2 years you've had like a huge spike in followers, and you just said that like a lot of your work is coming from the DMs, right? Basically, like people are seeing your work online and they're like, hey, I like this guy's vibe, I like the studio, I like his music, let's hire him for something.
Yeah, it's more like during the last 7 months, actually. So last year in November or so, I had 3K followers. Now it's 24, 23, I don't know. And back then, when I had 2,000 or 3,000, that was already huge for me. And but there I did a lot of active acquisition stuff. So I reached out to people and tried to talk to them, and I pitched stuff, or I created a little song for the scene. As I already said, I don't have time for this today anymore, and that's awesome. And so I don't know what changed. I think I did a few things. I acted like I was already more advanced as I am. Like I bought this desk. I don't need this to work. It's and I could barely afford this one. It was really like killing my bank
Studio
account.
desks are awesome.
Yeah, they are, but I didn't have the money. But I was like, okay, I have to, I don't know, I have to look more professional and stuff. And I didn't need this statue. it's
not dressed for the job you want, right?
Yeah, but it was a childhood dream too. It's
like what they say, presentation is key or king.
Yeah,
or whatever.
Absolutely.
It's all about, it's like, it's like all this stuff, like we've talked about this on the podcast before, like all this stuff isn't necessary, and it's not what we used when we were first starting. It's just kind of like, it just develops over time, or you start wanting to like add things, or especially if you're doing video, you start thinking about things differently, like how your room is set up. It's funny. I think I even commented. I was like, "Wow, like our setups are actually kind of similar." Minus I don't have statues and stuff.
Yeah,
but like your monitor setup, like all that sort of stuff. It's like how to either make it look cooler for video, or like changing it up for your workflow setup and all that kind of thing.
And that's another thing. I bought so many stupid stuff to improve my workflow. I had like so many hardware, and I was like, "Oh, that's going to improve my workflow in an awesome way." But in the end, I don't know. It barely happened that there's really a valuable thing that improves my workflow. I spent so much money on things that I sold again after a few weeks, where I tried to make me believe that it's very valuable for me and try to force me to use it. I don't know. But yeah, the first thing is try to look more professional than I was during, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, or 5. And the second thing is video in general. I don't I don't know, in the perfect world I wouldn't have to do these videos. It's not something that I like doing, so I think it's cool if it looks good and if people like what I'm doing. But I don't know, all these performance videos, they like to see that because people want to see things, they want to see stuff, and I understand that. But I don't want to do things while I like to talk about the things I do, and I like to showcase snippets and stuff. But yeah, that doesn't work. So I had a SoundCloud account, and it's I don't know, people they do listen to music, but they don't explore new stuff, or it's hard to reach out to people or make them, especially to sales stuff with non-visual things.
So you're saying visuals are very important. I think that's 100% true.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit more about what you're saying about the hashtag stuff, because that's an interesting topic that you see every now and again. It change. Like some people say, oh, like don't use hashtags, or use hashtags, or you should only use 5, or using too many will hinder how far. Yeah, so I'm curious to see what your thoughts are on that and the research you've done.
Yeah, I also read a lot about that. So, and then like 3 or I don't know, 6 months ago, already a short time period before, because I had one video that was exploding, and that gained me like plus 5,000 followers. In the end of last year, when I was talking about, then I reached 10K. Then I was thinking about, oh, this can work. And then I tried to use the same hashtags, and they didn't work, never again. So, and I didn't understand it. There's this explore page and stuff. And then I tried to dive into this topic, and it's a huge rabbit hole. And in the end, there's no real information, because nobody knows this algorithm that changes every day. And so then someday I just stopped. and threw away all these stuff or all these documents that I read with super valuable tips and stuff. I even paid money for people to tell me what I have to do, and it didn't work. And so I began to write down everything. I wrote down every hashtag that I used, and I tried different things, like only 5 for a few days, and compared it with other stuff. I compared different hashtag sets and different time zones, so when to post and stuff. And I combined that with the analytics of one of these schedule tools. Yeah, I'm using later. That worked for me.
This dude's doing science right now. This is scientific.
It really was. And for some reason, doing these tables and calculations kind of makes me feel relaxed, because it's like when you do music, it's always, there is nothing in the end. There is a track, but it's never done. You can say it's done now, but you know that it's not really done. It's so, and when you do a table, then it's done if it's done. And so I don't know, I like doing these things, and I have probably really hundreds of pages. So I compared everything during the last, from January on, I don't know. And slowly but steady, I didn't understand the algorithm or something, but I found a way that's pretty stable. So that there are a few videos every few days at the moment that may change again, that have 1,000 or 2,000 plus likes, and that my account stays growing. But that's also something where I try to get a bit of distance again, because it's so toxic. It really is weird, because you feel, oh, today I only reached 50,000 people, which is huge. When I try to get back into 2 years ago or something, it's so hard to appreciate what you already reached. That fits on everything, by the way, not only Instagram and stuff, but there you have these numbers. You have this arrow pointing downwards if you did worse than the week before. Mm-hmm. And that does something with your brain. It's really insane. And it's the same with my with making music. I don't know. I really reached a lot during the last 2 years. That I could have only dreamed of. That's a hard sentence for me as a non-native speaker. But it's, for me, it's super hard to appreciate these things. So I'm very happy every morning when I go into this room, but still I feel like, okay, now I have to achieve the next things and the next things. And that's something one should learn as early as possible, I think, to appreciate things, to take a rest, and just like look at what one or you already did. And especially with Instagram, but we don't need to talk about how toxic social media stuff is.
Instagram's funny because like, imagine having 50,000 people on your front lawn and they can say whatever they want to you. Like in real life, you'd be like, no, thanks. But on Instagram, you're like, yeah, I want these 50,000 people to like my video, and watch my video, and comment on it.
And that's really weird.
Yeah, it's
absolutely. But that's my whole life, actually, because I have one client or two in Germany, and I met one of them, and that's everything. So I worked with a lot of people during the last few years, but I never saw one of them, and I never saw the people that are, I don't know, writing feedback on my Instagram channel and stuff. And so it's even harder to understand what's happening, because in the end, I'm still sitting here in my room that looks a little bit like the child's room that I always dreamed of.
Nice.
For me, it's pretty hard to understand this, because I'm talking to people from China, and I'm not sure if I really understand that I'm talking to people from China at this moment. So that's the same with Instagram. I absolutely do not want multiple thousands of people stand in front of me saying like, yeah, you're great, or the other way around, even worse.
Right.
And
yeah, it's a little different when you deal with like mainly, like me and Nathan, like we don't work in an office together. So it's like, seeing someone on a camera and talking is probably the best thing versus just typing, because it's like there's almost this like disconnect. You're like, is this even real? You just get into this like routine of like, I go into, my room, I do my work, I email with my clients, but then it's, especially with like Instagram, it's like you're working so hard for this thing to get in front of people. But once they comment or say whatever, it's kind of like, is that reality? Like, is it, it's just weird. Like social media is a really weird, interesting thing on the mind, like you were saying. or it's almost kind of like what you start to think like, what is this for? Especially if you're getting stressed out about, the algorithm. You always hear people say like, oh, I'm getting shadow banned, or the algorithm, or it's like, for
Shadow
what?
bans. Yeah,
Like this stuff didn't even exist years ago. And like, you should like not, of course, make it to where it starts to ruin your life or stress you out. Cause
your whole
can,
identity.
yeah, it can really have a lot of crazy effects on your mind. So it's
absolutely.
like, you can't let it, of course, if you're using social media to try and get your stuff out there, just understand, like, don't take it serious to the point, because that stuff could go away at any time, and it'll, the next thing will come out, and then everyone will be working to understand that. And it's just like,
yeah, and that's pretty hard. But I think I made up kind of a persona. So I'm as much Tobi as possible. But that's something very important too. You have to use yourself to sell your product. So I made myself become a part of the product, because that's what people enjoy. They enjoy to work with people. And my kindness, my, I don't know, the fact that I care about the product and about the person and stuff, all these things, that's my real USP, not my super awesome music or something like that. It's, of course, that's a must have. You have to be good, and you have to have a style that the person likes, and you have to be able to understand game music and stuff, all these things, the hard skills. But you also have to be a good person in a way. So because otherwise maybe people will work once with you, but then they will be like, nah, I don't know, that wasn't great. And a lot of the people that I work with in the super early years came back years later when they grew up and stuff.
Repeat customers, repeat clients.
Yeah, absolutely. And back then, these persons didn't have a budget or something, but I still went all in. I did my job as good as possible. And even if I didn't really like the game, or I always tried to do the best possible thing, because that's my product. That's everything I am. It's like a bit too big, but in this composer Tobi Weiss persona, that's everything. Everything I release is everything I am, and everything I say and stuff. And that's why I write or talk so much about also the bad sides, or at least try at Instagram, and try to really get back to the people, because it's kind of scary. I get a lot of messages of people looking up to me, and I'm like, wow, I want to become like you. And I'm like, yeah, that's pretty weird that somebody said that, because I'm feeling like a child, and I'm sitting here in, I don't know, with no clothes on and doing a bit of music. So I really had to learn that, because in the beginning I felt a little bit like, are they I don't know, are they lying, or are they trying to do something bad to me? And it's super weird, but that helped a lot, by the way, to get above this imposter syndrome and stuff. When you notice there are people that actually look up to you, not in a way like, oh, I'm awesome and I'm the best person in the world, but like, oh, okay, I did something right, and I can give something back maybe, and I'm on the right course. And but it's still super dangerous. Yeah. What you said, Craig, there's like, you have these numbers, and especially if your Instagram account is not connected to a business or a business persona. But that's also a giant topic. But if your whole life is connected to, I'm a good person if I get enough likes. And I felt like that too a little bit, because you can fall into this cave or hole, because it's awesome that you have numbers in life. You in general don't have numbers. Your job, you have the payments, that's the reason why these payments are important. Bigger numbers equals you are a better composer in a way. So at least you can kind of understand these numbers. There's not like you're not leveling up like in an MMORPG or something, and now you're a level 60 composer. There's nothing. You never really know where you are.
I do. It's funny that the term imposter syndrome, I've been seeing that come up a lot. Even like a lot of YouTubers are starting to do videos talking about like imposter syndrome. And it's like, I think a lot of that ties into social media and like the numbers game thing. Cause it's like, you think, oh, well, this has this many and mine has this. Is there something wrong with me? Like, but that doesn't justify anything. Like, you can have, or some 5-year-old kid could have 2 million follows on Instagram or something, but it's like, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're like, I don't know, there's something wrong with you, I guess. I don't know. It's weird. It's a weird thing. Like, or like you feel like I'm not skilled enough. It's a weird thing. The term imposter syndrome, it's It's very interesting because like I think anyone who does like content creation probably has that thing that pops in their head, like what justifies your skill set or something.
But I think it's also about money in this specific case. I think it still feels super weird that people pay me for the stuff I do, especially when I do mentoring or something. I tried that because I want to improve my social skills and I like to help people. But yeah, it feels good. I do that once a month or something like that. And that was really hard for me because these people were paying me for me talking in a very reduced way. And I really was like, boy, I can't do that. I was talking to my girlfriend. I'm like, it's like, why the fuck should I do this? I'm nothing. And I was really like going down this curve. And but then it was awesome. And the guy was super happy, and it still felt super weird, and it feels super weird every time. And recently I met with a guy I didn't see his messages. He was writing me for weeks, and he was like so excited that I answered him. And then he was like, maybe you can answer me this question. I was like, hey, maybe let's just meet and chat a little bit in a Zoom talk, because he seemed to be nice. And he was like so excited. And that was weird. But I wanted to say something else about these things that you just said, Craig. That you compare yourself to other people. I had huge problems with that. So when I began creating stuff for social media, I felt exactly this way. Because for years, my videos had like 50 views on Instagram and YouTube still. I upload there, but I don't take care of that. And so, and I was like, am I doing something wrong? And it's super bad because during that time, I didn't earn enough money yet, because 3 years ago, I guess, I was able to quit all my side jobs and make this become my full-time job. And that was a bit before that date. And I really felt super bad because I was seeing these people with a lot of followers, and I was like, I can't do that. What am I doing wrong? Maybe I'm looking wrong. Maybe I don't know, because I really had to learn that during the last few years that this has nothing, your follower account. Because a small example, but I reposted videos that I posted a few years ago, and today, I don't know, they're liked by thousands of people. So it really says nothing. It is in no way connected with your quality. Of course, there should be, I don't know, a base level of quality. And maybe on the long term, people will see this. And it's, again, what we talked about in the beginning. There will be more and more situations where you can be lucky. Maybe, but maybe you won't. And that's super sad. But then at least you tried. Dangerous and scary.
Yeah. I want to talk about you posting a video every day. So I'm not on Instagram. I haven't seen your videos. But so what are these videos like? Are you playing music? Like, are you performing music on an instrument? Are you playing back music from your speakers? Or what's going on in these videos?
Most of them are simple performance videos. Like I'm recording myself. During the recording of an instrument a few years ago, I was acting like I was playing an instrument, but I noticed that nobody noticed that. Most of the people are like, they think I play the whole track with one hand. So, and they're like, oh, how do you play as many? I don't know. So that doesn't really matter. But today, a lot of music producers, especially music producers, are following me. And so I can't do that anymore. And so I don't know, I record myself while I'm working most of the times to save time, because everything has to be as efficient as possible. And then I take a snippet of that, I export the part, and then I take the stereo audio and put it under that. And then that's probably the most important thing that made my account grew. I write, I don't know, maybe 1,000 to 2,000 character, sometimes a bit less, sometimes a bit more, caption with insights and informations based on this track. And I started with that in June or May, I guess, and that gave me another huge boost, because it's not like before I just were like, I used this and that instruments, and it's a track for this and that. And I already talked quite a bit about game music things. So I explained what I did basically, but not in such a long way as I do now. So why did I use this instrument? And then a few months ago, I also began to create a few videos where I showcase stuff like layering or branching in game music. So I fade through the different layers and just like, show what you can do. Because such simple things in dynamic game music, like layering, branching, or parallel composing, or whatever, is something a lot of developers don't know about. So I think a lot of people who want to become a game composer, I get this question a lot too, are like, yeah, I can do cool tracks that sound like Two Steps from Hell. And like me, when I was 20 years old, I was like, yeah, I can do that. I'm a game composer. Listen to me. But that is totally wrong. And game devs don't know about that too. So you have to teach them. And so you present your selling points without being like, hey, do you want to pay me for my services? Because that's always weird, especially because there are a lot of people who are reaching out to a lot of people every day trying to sell their music and stuff.
Yeah, so there's two things to that. I think number one, you're posting every day, which is keeping you front of mind for people, both like potential clients and the people who are just interested in seeing what like an inner look at your life is like. And then you're educating people, and people are always happy to pay for education if it's something that they're interested in. So I think that's really smart. As far as like the DMs, when people are asking you like, what's the secret to being you, or what's the secret to the industry, and you come back with like, well, there is no secret. The secret is nose to the grindstone and work really hard and
it's
network.
the answer no one wants to hear.
Yeah.
Like, oh, they don't want to hear I've been doing this for 10 years straight, and I just finally am starting to like kind of crack through the surface. No one wants to hear that. They want like, because they, like you're saying with the visuals, like they see your studio, they're like, damn, this dude's setup is slick. It's got all these cool colors, and like he's got this, like awesome music setup. And it's like, that's what I need, but it's like, you didn't start off with that, and they don't know that. Like all they see is like, everyone sees like the finished product, but no one sees the work. And that's the thing. It's like most people are like, so like, what do I got? Is there like one thing I need to say to game devs to get the gig? And it's like, no, like you got to put in a lot of time into it. And those are the things that no one ever sees. They see the finished video or the video with the views or whatever. Like, oh man, like it's just like, and they feel like it's like this certain thing that's required for entry, that like, what do I need to do to get into the club or whatever? And it's just like, a lot of it's not just aesthetics, it's just the work.
Yeah, but I think it's pretty natural that people think that, because I thought that too. And in general in life, there's a solution to solve something. And so or at least there are a lot of situations. If you do that, then you will achieve this. So especially also in the work world, I think you understand. It's like you can begin to work here, then you do this and that, and then you get promoted or something.
The corporate ladder.
And so on. Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that doesn't exist. And that's what the people have to understand. That's why I talk so much about that, because that can really make you struggle hard during the first years when you notice nothing is happening. What the fuck am I doing wrong? And luckily for me, I somehow figured this out. But I would have been happy if there were people that were talking about this. And so when people are reaching out to me with this question, I think I have to, I don't know, copy paste something or prepare a story highlight, but I'm still sending back these 1-minute voice messages where I try to explain the whole thing as good as possible, because of course, I don't want to lie, so I'd never be like, yeah, I can sell you the secret to become a game composer. Yeah, it's really interesting that people think that way. But as already said, I think I thought that way too. How about you? Didn't you think when you were younger that there was like an easy way into the music industry, or did you know what was waiting for you?
I wanted it to be more of a math equation than it was, like a simple like step-by-step process that's laid out for you, and it's not.
Yeah, it's weird because like what you can sometimes initially think is going to be your journey or what's going to lead you toward doing the thing that you want to do never ends up really being that thing, because like, especially like for me, like I was playing in bands and wanting to tour, and then you do that and you're like, actually that isn't what I want to do, or like wanting to work in the music industry or something. You think like, oh well, I do this, so it's probably only going to be like this thing. But I've always felt like as long as you're just doing stuff, trying different things, I think that's the key. It's not always like a one thing, because you might be like a musician and then like you'll start doing video because you think you need to do video for, I want to do a YouTube channel. But then like you start getting really good at editing. And then let's say like some car company says, hey, we really like your video editing style. You want to like edit this commercial for us. And next thing you know, you're doing video editing for, commercial products or what, then you start working for this company. So it's like, you never know. And you might be like, oh, wow, I actually like really fell in love with this other thing that I never thought was going to be the thing that I wanted to do. And that's why I've always like if you have interest in something, just like do stuff, because you never know where it can take you. And I think that's even more exciting than just like thinking I want to do this one thing and you're doing 20-hour days and you're just driving yourself into the ground.
It's so important. It's one of the best things of these self-employment things, or I don't know, creative jobs, or because in the small scale, of course, it's so great that I don't know what I do next week. Maybe I write for, I don't know, I can't imagine anything more spectacular than this book thing, the soundtrack for the book right now, but I don't know. And I was always open. And a few people also asked me, should I specialize on writing for games or films or music? I don't know, just do whatever you feel and you will notice where you are best. And I noticed that I'm best in writing for games. And so I put more time into this because I had a huge amount of fun while doing that. And also I felt like, I'm good in analyzing visuals and writing for games, and I love games, and that's awesome. And as soon as I noticed that I don't have fun anymore, I started to think about things. And then in most of the cases, it was a situation where I didn't like the work environment, where I didn't like the people. And of course, you can't say that you should avoid these people from the beginning, because in the beginning it's always a bit harder. You have to accept jobs that you don't like. So now it's easy to say, I simply don't work with people I don't like, but that's nothing you do during the first years. So that's not the best tip. It's very hard to balance this, to respect yourself. Don't undersell yourself. Don't, join the price dumping crew. But on the other hand, try to survive. It's super hard. That's why I worked on festivals and stuff. And that's something I can really recommend. Make sure that you have enough money. However, work on festivals. If you are not good in audio tech, then maybe bake bread or something like this. Just make sure that you have as much money as you need to survive, because otherwise your head will kill you by thinking about what the fuck am I doing next month if there's no income or stuff like that.
Yeah, you're not gonna be able to squeeze water out of your creative process if you're can't pay your electric bill. So what advice do you give to someone starting out, someone who is just trying, like they're messaging you because they like you and they're like, hey, how do I do something similar? What advice do you what's your copy paste that you send out?
A classic voicemail would be something like, the first few messages would be like, hey, I mentioned that it took me a lot of time. That's always the first sentence. There is no shortcut. That's something I say and write very often these days. That's the most important thing. That's everything. And if the people continue to listen to this voice message or continue reading the text, then they want to know something about that. And I always write things like, I don't know, at least I don't know a shortcut, because maybe there is an amazing shortcut. I don't know, but I don't know one, and I don't know a person who knows the shortcut. Yeah. And then the most important thing is passion. That's everything in my specific business. So in creative art or music, creative things, if you try to get into the creative business, you have to have as much passion as possible. You should have an incredible amount of fun while working or doing your stuff, because otherwise this whole thing will swallow you. And it's not worth to do these things for the money or something. Like, or the people who are like, I'm becoming a rapper because I'm going to be rich as fuck. No, you won't, probably not. So it's
totally.
And that's the most important thing, because otherwise this will be hard. And of course, in a better world, it would be like equal money for every artist, and here is your and more support for. But that's not the world right now, and it's not reality right now. And there's a lot of abuse stuff. There are these libraries that are getting better and better, and only one short sentence about these libraries: they work. They always did. You can buy the awesome fantasy music pack and it will work. and that's a problem, because in this minute it's hard to sell something different that's way more expensive. It will work, but in the same time, it doesn't cover a lot of opportunities to increase the immersion. I don't know, the memorability and stuff, and all these things, to use music as signature, mood technology, and all this stuff. But yeah, that's a hard opponent, and you have to fight not only against other composers, but only against these libraries and AI. Who knows what AI will do in a few years? And that makes this point, include yourself as a person into your USPs, even more important. Because I don't know, maybe in 20 years or something, that will be the only USP, because AIs will be amazing composers. I don't know. We don't know. So, but yeah, passion, that's the most important thing. And then just, I don't know, look over here, over there, do a little bit of this and that, and recreate as many soundtracks as possible. That's the most valuable exercise you can do.
Yeah, try things, and you're gonna find out that you don't like a lot of things you thought you liked. So that's good. What's the best advice you've ever been given? Can you think of anything there?
I think during all these years, I should have talked to more people. I was always like a bit of, I enjoy being alone, and I enjoy doing stuff on my own. And so I don't remember any specific advices, but probably something my mom said, because that's something super valuable that like covers my whole life. She was always like, from the very early days when I was trying to become a rock star, she was like, okay, do this. And when I went to her and said, hey, I want to do this and that, can you borrow me money? I pay you back. Okay, you do this. And back then, I didn't 100% understand how valuable this is, to have like somebody that is there. Even if you are alone, you're never alone. And today, I couldn't appreciate this anymore. I don't know. It's like the most valuable thing for me. And probably she said things, maybe not like an advice, like use G minor instead of G, or do this or that business step, but probably a single sentence or a lot of single sentences that just like gave me strength.
Yeah, having that support.
Yeah. Sorry, that's a hard word for German guys. Strength.
Yeah, just having the support behind you that just keeps you going. You feel like the wind is in your sails.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah, the passion thing is the big thing, because it's like, if your whole motivation is just like money and fame, like that is a, goalpost thing maybe for some people. Like, I want to get, my first paid gig, or I want to be able to, make X amount of dollars a month, or I want to have this many projects. Like, you always have those different, goals and stuff, and it will always kind of, I think we talked about this on one of our recent podcasts, like it always kind of keeps moving back. Sometimes it moves back really far, sometimes it's just like slow incremental things, but it's like you have to have the passion, like you mentioned. I think that's a very important thing, because if you don't naturally want to like get better or work on things, like like when you think about it, when we were all starting out, or like learning guitar or learning an instrument, like no one was paying you to do that. There was no like, oh man, like I want, maybe you're like, I want to be able to like learn a song or something like that. But where's your motivation for practicing? It was just because you had a passion and love for wanting to do it, because it was fun. That is always like the most important thing. Like if you're doing something and you're not having fun anymore, like that's a pretty good sign that you're not doing the right thing, or there's something that you're doing that needs to be changed, or your thought process on it or something. Because it's like, also that's another thing too, like like with like gratitude, like if you're in if you create your own favorite space and you're not having fun at it anymore, it's either like maybe you're just getting pulled in the wrong direction, or you need to like step back and have a little gratitude and think about 3 reasons why you should be stoked on life, when it's because sometimes you might just be like, man, like everything sucks right now, but it's like sometimes I think like, man, like I never had any of this stuff. So it's like I should be pretty happy, because it's like things could be way worse.
Yeah, but it's hard sometimes that's what I already said, to really understand that your current situation. I think it's easier to be like, or you will notice how awesome your life was when it gets worse. That's what happens. So that's always the case in any part of the life. But yeah, and you're totally right. These words were pretty amazing. And that's something I actively, or try in an active way, just to appreciate stuff more and be like, calm down a little bit because I feel old with 30 years now. And so it's like I have to, I don't know, I don't want to rush through my life anymore, chasing the next big goals, because of course I'm like, oh, it would be awesome to earn this amount of money with music, because then I could buy an even more awesome studio or something like that. It's not like I don't care about money, but everybody does, because it allows, but I care about money because it allows me A, to survive, and B, to make even better music, or make my creative space my happy space. I don't know.
Yeah,
and
just creating the life that you want to live and feel comfortable.
Absolutely. And that should be your number one priority, as you already said. Just like to always, I don't know, maybe once a year, maybe once a month, just like double checking if you're happy. So with what you do, especially if you're spending a lot of time on these things, so maybe it's not worth it. I know that I'm still, after 10 or 15, I don't know, years, 100% happy. So my neck is messed up now, but that's okay. I can take care of that. But I know I'm super happy. There's super hard times, but I'm super happy, even if the times are super hard. And so I know I'm doing the right thing. I don't know where I'll be in 5 years. I have no idea, but that's awesome. Because if I imagine to sit like in a business house or a company, and it would be like, you have to work 50 more years on this computer, and then you can enjoy your life. That's and I don't want to make it sound like that's the worst way of life. Luckily, there are people who love this way of life, to like being safe and stuff, because if everybody would be like me or us, it would be a horrible world that wouldn't work probably. And so it's awesome if that's your way to go, then maybe that's your way to go. But in my specific case, I know that this would, I don't know, it would drive me crazy probably. I never worked like in a fixed situation for somebody. What's the name? Employment. Something, and I hope that I can keep this for the rest of my life, but maybe not. Maybe I want to become an in-house composer or something, or maybe I want to open up a little store where I sell cake. I don't know.
Totally.
Yeah, that is something I would like to do, is one day have a food truck.
Oh, they would be awesome.
You know, like when you think of like things like completely different from what you normally do. Like if I had like $1 million and I could like start like some new venture, I would do it like a food truck or something. Like a vegan food truck. Yeah. That would be awesome.
What kind of food?
Just any types of vegan food. I don't know, like stuff I've been like trying to make is like, you know, because at first it was like, all right, how can I recreate the things that I used to eat, but in this way? Yeah. Like that was always like I was like, I'd probably do stuff just like that I like.
I do that a lot about this food truck. I actually really think a lot about, and sometimes I like thinking about having a little hut, maybe in, I don't know, Norway or something, just like selling the most important things. Here is a cake or a coffee or some milk, and just like this way of life, because it's a 100% contrast to my life. Sometimes seems like a great idea, but I also know that it wouldn't make me happy for long, at least not right now, maybe in a few years, but it's pretty much the same, just like being there and just selling a few things and looking at trees. Yeah.
Nothing makes you feel better than like preparing a meal for someone and seeing them like, man, this is so good. It's like, I mean, it's like with music, it's like, you know, you can make a thing and then like you play it from, you're like, oh, I hope they like it, or oh God, like, you know, it's like the same thing for me when I make food for someone. They're like, all right, here you go. Like, I'm like, oh, they're gonna like it, you know, oh, like what, you know, but then they're like, oh man, this is awesome. It's like that same kind of thing. Like, oh hell yeah, like I don't know.
It's pretty close actually. Maybe that's why I want to sell only coffee and stuff. I don't want to be graded in this dream I have in a few years.
You don't want like Gordon Ramsay to come by and try your cake. Like, oh,
absolutely not. No,
that's funny.
Yeah. Disgusting.
Yeah. So I was asking about like, would you do like a taco truck, or would like a specific genre of food?
I think it would.
It's just all vegan food.
Yeah, I think I'd like to switch it up, you know, like maybe have like a breakfast, lunch, and dinner type stuff, or just have different stuff like egg burritos, or like tofu scrambles, or burgers. Could do tacos too. I'd be down to do whatever.
Bitch and sauce on the side.
A little bit of that bitch and sauce.
Yeah,
bitch and sauce. Let me get an endorsement.
Okay, so Toby,
Awesome promotion.
Toby, tell us about a personal project you're excited about. Do you have any passion projects on the side that you're looking forward to?
So there is this project, NFC Need for Cheese, like a top-down action RPG, Diablo-esque, but you're playing as a rat and stuff. But it's cool, and I worked on this game for 2 years now.
Wow.
And it was my first really big soundtrack where I could make a lot of use of all these layering things and stuff. I planned way too much in the beginning, and I learned a lot that you shouldn't. One leitmotif is probably enough, because otherwise you confuse the player and stuff, maybe two, but I don't know. And it was really an amazing trip, and I spent way too much time. If I would look at it like the money I got and the amount of hours I spent, but that's totally fine, because these guys from Croatia, they are awesome, 2 guys. And I traveled there actually in a month or so, and for a DevCon or something. And right now, since a few weeks, we are able to play the first alpha and stuff, and I can test all these things I did in the Unreal Engine, like implementing sounds and music and stuff. That's something you should learn too, by the way. There are a lot of soft skills that you should take an eye on, like understanding Unreal Engine, Weiss and stuff, middleware, but never mind.
There's a lot of software, yeah.
And that feels so awesome, because that's the first game that I scored where I really feel like, yeah, I would buy this game, not because the other ones were bad, but maybe because I don't know, I really like top-down action RPGs. Diablo 2 was one of my most played games when I was younger, and so that feels so amazing right now that we are coming to an end, which means only 1 year more or something, because polishing stuff is something that takes a lot of time, especially if you're only 3 people. They began
and all that stuff.
And they began way early. I joined them like 2 years ago, and they worked on this thing, I don't know, 6 or 7 years. They are working in some AAA team, like as their main job, and are doing this during the nights. And they are awesome. And beside that, I'm doing 2 games right now. So this NFC things runs parallel all the time. And then I always try to have 2 or at least 1 main priority project active. And these 2 games are pretty cool, smaller projects, 20 minutes of music each. And it's a nice contrast, and that's something I like. So it's nothing super specific right now, nothing super exciting happening in the next days. But who knows? But that's a nice situation, because one game is a pretty weird one where you are a seagull that fights people and other seagulls. And it's a pretty weird game, weird music, because we went for a mix of classic, cliche, orchestral instrument with some Caribbean style beach music, because it's a weird game. We have combat, but a seagull, and I don't know, I try to combine some things and that's fun. And the other one is a classic, straightforward horror survival game with like ambiences and dark things, and that's that's great, because I like to switch things up. So there's always one day where I work on this, and then the next one on the other one, and the client can reply during that time, and that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you how you juggle the project. So do you spend like multiple hours per day on one, and then the next day you'll switch to like switching from composing for horror to composing like the Caribbean music would be kind of jarring for me. So do you like break it up into days or weeks, or do you sometimes do like 2 hours of horror and then 2 hours of that like fantasy stuff?
In most of the times, I don't know, actually. I said that I do it day by day, but there are a lot of days where I do both. And sometimes I like that. So I take a short break, obviously, just like look outside, get some sun or something like that.
Yeah.
Not going outside. That should happen more often. But then, I don't know. Yeah. But it's for some reason, it always worked for me. I also never had any problems with not being, or like creative blocks or something. Luckily, maybe this will change. But when I sit down and I'm in a good mood, and that's sometimes or in not a super bad mood. So if I am in a slightly bad mood, that's fine too. Just sit here, I look at the project, and maybe I play around a little bit, browse through some presets. That's what I do a lot, just like getting inspired and stuff. And then I don't know, then begins this moment, you probably know that, where 1,000 ideas appear and you just pick a few of them and throw them at the project as much as possible. And then later you use that again. And that's so amazing. So it's not, it's more like something I like to switch at one day from one very different project to another pretty different project. It's like a task I like to switch around and to yeah.
And what genres of music are you composing the most of? Is it like fantasy, cinematic, orchestral stuff, or is like what's your go-to kind of like bread and butter?
During the first years, that's what I did most of the time. I tried to sound like Thomas Bergerson or something like that. So that was because that was my first contact to this epic orchestral music stuff with like all this music that was used way too much until today. It's a problem, but yeah. And so I did that a lot, and I still have a lot of influences by that. But I don't know. I think what I always love, especially in the last few months, there were quite a few of them, to combine sometimes chiptune or 8-bit with modern orchestral elements, because I personally love these 8-bit things, and of course it has to fit. And for example, there was a pixel art Metroidvania, and that's awesome because you have modern lights and stuff, you have dangerous situations, you can always combine that with these things. And in general, I like to combine things. There's a lot of stupid stuff, or a lot of stupid stuff came out that just sounded like shit. So, but that's fine because I always like to throw a few things together. But yeah, there's pretty much always at least something orchestral going on, I guess, even if it's like hardly edited. So that's also what I like to do a lot, to just like transform, destroy sounds, to try what happens or to look what happens. That's always something you can do in games very great. Just like if you take an instrument, connect it to something, and let's say the word becomes worse and worse, it gets like corrupted, then the instrument can become corrupted too, and the player will notice that subconsciously. And so you support the visual layer by letting them evolve hand in hand.
What kind of plugins are you using to get the lo-fi 8-bit sound? Or like, are you using sample libraries or just like throwing effects plugins on?
For these 8-bit things, I have two libraries that I use a lot. There's one, especially for chiptune and stuff, is by UVI.
Okay, yeah.
I guess the 8-bit synth. I guess.
Nice.
And that's something I really use a lot because you can, I don't know, play around a little. You have a lot of stuff for manipulating, modulation and stuff. And I tried these things. There are these things that act like the old I don't know, Amiga processors and stuff, or the Super Nintendo processors, but I don't know, I somehow wasn't able to make it work in a good way for me. And and I don't know, I don't work with own recorded samples anyway, so I always work with VSTs plus plugins, plus maybe my acoustic guitar that I record, or other musicians that I hire for something. And so that's awesome. And from Ugritone, I guess, an 16-bit synthesizer. He makes pretty weird stuff. I think it's one person.
Okay.
And he does some weird metal drums and stuff too. He's a pretty weird person, and he always drinks beer and seems to be super happy. And he has a great, but I don't know the name, Koji.
Yeah, so Soundiron's got to get an 8-bit library going. We don't have any 8-bit stuff right now.
Oh, I thought I missed that. No. So maybe you should do something. I will buy it immediately, or I write a demo track for it.
I mean, a lot of our vintage keys definitely lend themselves to that old school kind of.
The UFO thing. That's I actually still use that a lot. I created, I don't know, I think 5 or 6 sounds that I created during writing the demo track and afterwards that are still a few of my go-to sounds for creating stuff like that, and for a few other situations. So good that you mentioned that one.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. So we just have a few quick questions to close this thing out. The first one would be, do you have a best recent purchase under $100? So it could be an experience, it could be a video game. Oh, what is that? Oh, it's
My
character.
my Dark Samus Aaron amiibo.
Very nice.
That's I'm in love with her. I also have her on my arm. My first video game I ever played or I played through, and so that was a great purchase.
Which Metroid game is your favorite?
Metroid Fusion on Game Boy Advance.
Nice.
I'm all about that Super Metroid for Super Nintendo. That one's my favorite.
Yeah, I played it after Metroid Fusion, so probably if it would have been the other way around. So, but yeah, it was my first one. So
that game's too hard for me. I just rage quit every time.
It is hard, but it's so great.
Some years back, I rebought Super Nintendo just to get Final Fantasy 3 and Super Metroid because those were like two games I used to play a lot when I was a kid. And I was like, I went on eBay and got it for like $50 with like everything pretty much.
I got one recently too. But yeah, that's a few weeks ago. Anyway, quickfire.
No, you're good. The next question is favorite YouTube channel, podcast, or TV show at the moment. Just something that you're enjoying.
8-Bit Theory is awesome.
Okay.
I watch a lot of weird speedrun explain videos why they like he acts like it's like a thesis or something. 45-minute videos about the history of Mario Kart speedruns. I don't know why. And
wow.
I like it's weird. Summoning Salt, and I like I never played Final Fantasy, but I'm the last few days I watched like hours during when I lay in bed about the hardest bosses in Final Fantasy, the best swords and stuff. Also, like I don't know why I didn't play this game, but for some reason stuff like that, gaming related, calms me down. And a lot of gaming podcasts, to stay up to date.
That's crazy. You haven't played Final Fantasy, dude. You got to get on there.
Yeah, not a single one. I love Breath of Fire 2. Maybe you know that. That was my first.
Like I used to play. Like, do you ever play like Chrono Trigger and stuff like that?
Yeah,
like
I played
older
these,
RPGs?
all these awesome. But for some reason, I don't know. I never played a single one, and now I'm afraid to start them because I don't know where to start, and I hate the early PS1 look. So it's really hard to replay.
Well, you can start with the Final Fantasy VII remake. That's like, I mean, 7's probably the most like loved of like a lot of the people who are into it. The remake is it's similar, but there's a lot of things that are new and different that because I've played the original 7 a few times. But
then it was awesome for you, wasn't it? Because I know what they changed, and I think it was amazing when you played the old game back then.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when the first Final Fantasy VII came out, and just like I got the PlayStation right when it first came out, and I remember like playing, and like seeing the trailer for 7, and back then those graphics were amazing compared to Super Nintendo. So it's like I think I'm just since I grew up with that stuff, it's not too much of a big change for me. Like some people now are probably like, oh, those graphics are trash because everyone's so spoiled with how great things look now. But I'm like, I came up from playing Final Fantasy 1 on Nintendo. So
yeah, and that's great. That's a great look. I laugh. But I think these old 3D graphics just didn't age well. But I also don't really like awesome graphic. That's cool for a minute, but I don't know. I always preferred like 2D games, and especially when we come to JRPGs, like round-based fights. I can't get into this like what a lot of games, Tales of Arise and stuff, did that too, where you have to. I don't know what's happening. If you smash a few buttons, there are lights everywhere, and I want a good round-based system like Dragon Quest and stuff. That's what I enjoy playing today. But yeah, quickfire.
It's quick fire on our part. It doesn't have to be quick on yours. They're just starting points. The last one I have for you is, what goals do you have for yourself in the next couple of years? What's next for you?
Becoming a bit more relaxed. I think it's nothing job related. If I obviously want to keep growing, to have great project where we have a budget to create awesome things, that's the most amazing thing. If I'm allowed to do that, everything's fine. I love indie teams and stuff, but the most something where I really have to be a bit careful and to take care of is like to calm down a little bit and to learn to relax and find some hours of silence, or like just like to calming down again and not being like, okay, now it's 2 a.m. but let's think about tomorrow for 4 hours from now. And that's really exhausting. And I'm noticing this a lot the last 2 or 3 years, and it became better already. But that's my main goal. Just like basically it's what we already talked about again, just like staying happy and becoming a bit healthier and doing stuff for my body and my mental health and just staying happy. And that's it.
Exercise is a great one for that too.
Good old exercise. What are your hobbies and interests outside of music and games? It's okay if you don't have any. Those are they're all consuming.
I recently started to drive around with my bike again. That feels really good. And the last 2 times or something, I did it the first time without headphones on, because I already told you I'm always, I don't know, I don't listen to music. I can't do that because that's analyzing again, but I want to listen to somebody talking all the time for whatever reason. And I did it without headphones, and it was amazing. Just like driving around, you feel that you're doing something with your body. That's awesome. I don't know. And I bought like Gloomhaven. I don't know if you know that. It's like a big D&D like board game that you can like together, like a guided D&D game for 2 persons. You don't need like the storyteller, because sadly I never was able to dive into these things because I'm not old enough, or I don't know. And that's something I look forward to. And that's pretty much it. I think luckily gaming and creating music are my top list priorities.
Yeah, your first loves. That's all you need, really. That's awesome, man. Well, Tobi, thanks so much for coming on, dude. This was a blast. And we will point people to your Instagram so they can see these videos of you performing this music and stay in touch with you. And they can send you a DM that says, how can I do what you do? And you can send them a voice.
just tell them to check out the podcast.
Right.
Yeah.
You can just you can just point them to this podcast from now on. Yeah, exactly.
That's a wise thing, just like self-promotion, and a great advice for me, actually. So that was a nice thing you just said.
It's all about the 2 birds with 1 stone. Was that how do you do that?
Absolutely, man. All right. Well, we'll catch up with you soon. Craig, catch you next week, dude.
All right, man. Later. Tobi, thanks again.